Kia ora and welcome to Cass Yaps. This is episode 5, and today I thought I would tell you guys my birth story because obviously I'm gearing up to give birth again. So I thought, let's reminisce, let's walk down memory lane. And I didn't actually talk about my birth on social media really at all. I talked a little bit about it on Instagram stories, but I never made a TikTok about it. And I think it's because, being really honest, it was a really good birth. It was a good experience. And what I found straight away from becoming a mum on social media is that anytime I shared really positive things, you would just get all of these comments of people trauma dumping what did it go right or that it's going to get worse, and just like a real negative kind of tone on my positive content. And it really upset me. I'm not gonna lie, I got really sensitive about it. So I just stopped kind of posting, and I didn't want to post anything too positive because I feel like that really attracted people. And I also didn't want to make people feel bad. But I'm kind of coming to terms with realizing that you enjoying motherhood doesn't take away from people that are struggling, and you're allowed to enjoy it, and you're actually allowed to enjoy it loudly. In fact, I think lots of young girls and young women need to hear that there are positive stories and need to hear that there are multiple ways of doing things and not be so scared about it. Because I think I went into it being like, oh my God, everybody talks about this. It's the worst thing ever. But I found the whole experience actually really empowering. Obviously hard. It's bringing a human. You have to get a human from like inside your belly to outside of your body. So obviously it's hard, but it's super worth it. And I didn't feel like it was at all more than I could manage. So let's begin. I'll start with how I kind of prepared for birth. Now, I'm really lucky in the way that I grew up with a mum who talked about childbirth. It was like a supernatural, no big deal thing. Like, she was like, yeah, obviously it hurt and stuff, but no big deal. She had all natural births, all really positive births. And I did this hypnobirthing course called Kiwi Birth Project. Incredible. Definitely recommend it if you are feeling a bit anxious. And it talks about how that really shapes the way you think about birth, is like how it was spoken to you growing up. So I was really lucky in the way that my mum had always spoken about it positively. I actually hadn't heard any negative stories really ever. I was at my older sister's birth for one of my nieces, and that was like full on, but it was a really good birth. Nothing went wrong or anything. So I went into it pretty positive, pretty confident that my body was built to do it and all those kinds of things. We did Kiwi Birth Tales, Kiwi Birth Projects course. I thought that was really cool, really informative. Something that I really loved about that is like how it talked about the different stages of labor and like explaining things like, I didn't even understand that contractions were like something that happened, and then after the contraction stopped, there was no pain. And I was like, oh, I can handle that. If it's not just I kind of had it in my head that labor was just constant pain, but it's not. It's a slow build up. Well, I found it was a slow build up, and then it was like a bit intense, and then it ends. And that's kind of how it was. So building up, me and Nick talked a lot about how I needed him to support me, what I wanted to do. I really wanted a home birth. That was my kind of choice, because I am just not a hospital girly. Never stayed the night in a hospital, never gone to the hospital other than like random trips to A&E for like one time I punched a wall when I was like a teenager. Random things like that. So embarrassing to admit now. Anyways, so I just don't like hospitals. I don't like the way they smell. They freak me out. So I was like, wanted to have a home birth. A couple days out, I think I was probably like 39 weeks though. Little Nug stopped move. I couldn't feel his movements as much. And I was like, oh, I can't really feel him move. So had to go in for a check. Next day, same thing, another check. Third day, another check. And my midwife was like, yeah, you can't have a home birth now. He was fine. Every time we checked his heartbeat, it was there and stuff. But they couldn't explain why he was moving less. I was really confident that he was fine. I don't know what that is. Like, I wasn't worried. I remember bursting into tears when they said that I couldn't have a home birth, and they said that they were worried about the baby and stuff. And it's so funny. A couple months ago, we were watching a TV show about a pregnant woman, and there were complications, and she was really upset. And Nick was like, how scary was that when they said they were worried about Nug? And I was like, oh, I wasn't worried. Like, he was fine. And Nick was like, you burst into tears. And I was like, I burst into tears because we couldn't have a home birth, not because I was worried about him. And then Nick was like, why didn't you tell me that you weren't worried about him? Because I was worried about him. And I was like, oh, I should have communicated that. Anyways, that was a random side story. So so then like a couple days out, home birth gets taken off the table. I get really upset. I just accept it though, because I was like, it is what it is. I'm still allowed to labor for as long as I want at home. They take getting induced off the table because they ended up having a scan and they find out that he's like facing in and he's hitting the placenta, and that's why I couldn't really feel him, which I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Anyways, so then home birth is off the table. They were like, if you don't go into labor, they were like, okay, if you don't go into labor naturally, we will induce you around 40 weeks. And I'm at 39 and 5 now, I think. So then I go and get a massage from Bella Mama. If you live in Auckland on the North Shore and you're pregnant, go to Bella Mama. Oh my God, their massages are amazing. I think it was the second one that I went to. And Nick called up and was like, we need this baby out. And the woman was like, we'll get her out. Massage, went home, really relaxing night, jumped on my birthing ball. And then I think I even expressed, like, because it helps push labor along. And yeah, we did all the things that night to induce labor. Okay. It worked because that night I was like, oh, I think that's maybe a contraction, because it felt a little bit different to a Braxton Hicks, which I'd been getting. I was like, oh, I wonder how many I'll have while I sleep. And then I think I had probably one in every hour while I was sleeping. And at that point, you're not really sleeping that much. I think I slept like 5 or 6 hours. And I woke up 5 or 6 times to the feeling. And then in the morning, I was like, oh, yeah, I reckon we're a bit on here. And I really wanted the beginning of my labor to be really peaceful and calm, and for us to go do an activity together so that it didn't drag on. I hated the idea of my labor feeling like it was really long, because I was like in labor the whole time. So we went out for breakfast, which was so nice. It was like our last date together, which I loved. So we went to Lily's in Devonport. Another recommendation. That is a great cafe. I didn't eat or anything because it's literally just like getting weird period cramps is the best way I'd describe it. And I definitely felt like something's different when they're happening, but it wasn't super painful or unbearable. They're just a bit uncomfortable, like your period cramps are something. And then we went home, went and put our feet in the ocean, a little walk down to the water, and that was super easy. And then we just started knuckling down at home to like really start laboring. And I made sure, my biggest thing was that I really wanted to stay active throughout my entire labor. So like walking between contractions and contracting, never contracting laying down, because I just didn't think that made much sense for you to lie down while you're contracting, because if your body's trying to like pull something out of it, you'd want gravity to be doing its thing. So I was always like on all fours leaning up against my birthing ball, which I found really good. Did that, and it got to about 2:30, and the contractions I think we're about like at 3 every 10 minutes. And so Nick's like on the phone to the midwife. He's like packed the car. You know, Nick, he's like army man, action man. Everything's sorted. All I need to focus on is laboring. I'm just so focused on this. Another thing I did was I didn't have my phone on me at all. The moment the day started, I gave Nick my phone and I was like, I don't want to see it. I don't need it. I just want to focus. And I thought that was really good, because one, time didn't exist. Nothing else existed except for me, Nick, and Nug. Like that was my focus. And then I remember had like one contraction that was like really gnarly. And then Nick was like, okay, we need to go. Because this is when we lived down in Devonport. And like Lake Road around 3 p.m. Anybody from Auckland knows it's like not what you want to be doing. And Nick's like, I don't want to be stuck in like heaps of school traffic and you like really progress. So let's go now. So I think we probably left at like 3:15. And those like the way to the hospital, I probably had like 2 contractions. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are ramping up, all right? They're a bit spicy now. And Nick's like, you're doing great. But I'm like, do you reckon I'm faking it? It's so weird because you don't know. You've never been in labor before. You assume you're in labor, but there's nothing that you don't know. Like, and I kept on being like, do you think I'm faking it? And Nick's like, no, I don't think you're faking it. I think you're in labor. So we get there. I remember we got to the hospital and Nick went to go get me a wheelchair. And I was like, oh my God, don't give me a wheelchair. That's so embarrassing. Like, Nick, people are going to know I'm in labor. This is like so embarrassing. Me with my giant pregnant belly in a wheelchair having contractions. I was like, is this a movie scene? Like, I can't. This is so embarrassing. Nick's like, okay, well, you can't walk because you keep on having these contractions. You need to sit down. So I reluctantly got on the wheelchair and I was like, oh my gosh, we're in the elevator. There's all these people in the elevator and I just start having a contraction. I was just like, this is so real life. I can't even deal with the fact women do this all the time. And I'm just like, what's going on? Anyways, so funny. We get into the birthing suite and Nick is straight away like, you need to go fill up the pool to one of the nurses. He was like, and they're like, has she had any painkillers? He's like, no. And they're like, does she want some Panadol? And I was like, yes, please. And they're like, cool. So they went and got me some Panadol. And one of them fills up the birthing pool. And then maybe my midwife shows up. So I didn't even have my midwife. My midwife was an angel from heaven. She's incredible. If you're birthing, I don't even know if she's still midwife in Auckland because I know she's moved. But she's incredible. I'll recommend her to everyone. She's amazing. But she wasn't actually on. She was like, it was her second. It was great. But like, I was a little bit like, ugh. But it was fine because it's literally, I thought the midwife was going to be way more involved. They're so not. Like, I think they're as involved as you want them to be. But Nick obviously thinks he's a doctor. So he was like all in. He built me. We're like in this hospital room and there's this little corner bit that's obviously like an office or something. And Nick builds me this fort. He gets these like hospital mattresses, builds this little wall, then like puts all these mattresses down, blanket down. I've got like my incense going. There's crystals. He's got music on. Like it's just like vibes in there. And he just sets me up there with my ball. And I'm just contracting. And then he's like literally standing guard because he just was like, no, like, we want it to feel like a sanctuary. And it's like, just have your energy in it. And we just don't want anybody walking in your birthing space. He's, Nick, he's very thoughtful and like, conscious of like how precious this moment is. So it's like one of the fucking cutest things ever. I think back to it and I'm like, oh, that's so sweet, even though I was like in labor. Anyways, so then the midwife shows up and she's like, let's see how dilated you are. And by this point, you get to this point where you start almost going blind because you're just like, wow, this is just full on contraction. I'm probably an hour off being blind, but I'm definitely like in it. I can still communicate and stuff and move. So we go check how dilated I am, and I'm like 3 centimeters dilated. So for anybody that hasn't had babies yet, 10 centimeters is like the baby's coming. 3 centimeters is like you're barely there. And I think you have to be like 5 centimeters for the hospital to even keep you. The midwife was like, yeah, like you aren't in established labor. We would usually send you home at this point, but you seem to be laboring quite well. Which I was like, what does that even mean? But you've probably got like 7 hours to go. And I'm like, what? There's just no way. Like I was like, I don't reckon that's true. And then I was pretty disheartened because I was like, how is this even happening? Like because in my mind, if somebody was like, how close are you to having this baby? I would have said an hour, 2 hours, like he's real close. So for that to come back with like, I wasn't dilated that much and all this stuff, I was like, oh, fuck. Do I even know my body? What's going on? Anyways, midwife leaves. Nick like grabs me, locks eyes. He's like, you don't need to fucking listen to her, okay? This is your body. This is your birth. What does she know? How's she going to tell you about your birth? He's like, next, all of a sudden, captain of the first 15 again. And he's like giving me a bit of a fucking halftime pep talk. It was so funny. Also exactly what I needed to hear. He's just like, 3 centimeters, it doesn't mean anything. He was like, you've done amazing to get 3 centimeters. I know people that only get 1 centimeter. I'm just like coming up with all these statistics, like making them up, I think. Yeah, so many women wouldn't even be able to get two centimeters. And here you are at 3. Like, it's actually, I wish we filmed it because Nick was just incredible and so funny. I feel like if we could watch my birth again, you guys would laugh at some of the shit Nick said. But it all worked because it just kept me like positive and stuff. And then we're like continuing to labor. And then she's like, okay, it's going to be like another 7 hours. Do you want like some codeine and a sleeping pill? And it might actually relax your body enough to maybe make it go a bit faster. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. Because at this point, I'm like, if it's 7 more hours, do I want an epidural? What do you mean? What do you mean that's 7 more hours? That's wild. So I'm thinking like, oh my God, am I about to ask for an epidural? Which is just not, I didn't really have a birth plan or anything, but I didn't think I wanted an epidural. Like, probably just because my mum didn't have one. And like, I don't know. I'm like, well, my mum didn't have one, so I don't want one. Anyways, so she was like, do you want some codeine? I'm like, yep. So I have this codeine, have this sleeping pill. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. And you're not feeling really anything. I've got the TENS machine on, that little electrocuting machine, which is great. I need to go to the bathroom because I need a wee. And Nick helps me because at this point, I'm blind. I can't really see in front of me. You're just like head down, getting the work done. I go to the bathroom and then my water breaks while I'm sitting on the toilet, and the most dramatic sound ever. It was so loud because it all broke at one time. Like, some people's water like trickle, some people breaks a little bit. Mine was all at once, like the movies. Smack straight into the toilet bowl. Oh, sorry. Straight into the toilet bowl. So it was so loud, and I'm like panicked as I'm like wide-eyed, being like, what was that? And Nick's like, not the baby, don't worry. And I was like, because I did. I was like, are we done? What is that noise? Like, it's so dramatic. And because I think things like my mucus plug, which is like this little bit of mucus that comes out, had like gone while I was contracting on the floor in the corner. And so like I was like, maybe my water has already gone. I don't know. I just didn't expect it to be like that. I guess you just don't know what your water breaking is going to be like. Anyways, so water breaks. I'm like, okay, all right, here we are. And then I go back to get into my zone to contract more. And then straight after, I'm like, oh, I thought, no, actually, at this point, after my water broke, Nick was like, can you check her again? See how dilated she is? And then the midwife was like, no, we can't. We have to wait another 2 hours or some shit before we check her again. You can't keep checking them, which I understand. I think it's like to not let women get down on themselves if they're not progressing, because it can be like such a head fuck. So Nick's like, I think you need to check her again. She's like, no, we can't check her again. And Nick's like, whatever. So then I go back down, keep contracting. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I need to poop. I got to poop now. So I'm like, okay, I need to poop. And then I go to the bathroom and my midwife is like, absolutely not. You don't. We need to check you. I was like, no, I need to go poop first. She's like, no, that might not be poop. We need to check you. So I get down. She has a look. I'm 10 centimeters dilated. Baby's head is right there. I'm like ready to go. And then she is like, oh, okay. And then Nick straight away like, okay, well, you need to sort the bath out, because like they had filled up the pool, but obviously it's not the right temperature. So he's like straight back into ordering people around. He's like, okay, you need to go get the bath ready now. She wants to have it in the bath, which is good because it's so interesting. People like, you need somebody advocating for you, but you really do, because like at that point, I was so blind. I just wanted it over. I would have just been like, yep, I'll just birth here, which is not what I wanted. I did not want to birth on a bed. But I was just so desperate to be like, okay, let's wrap this thing up. Okay, I want to go home. So then they were like, sweet as, we'll do that. And so when they fix the birthing pool, and then they're like, okay, well, do you want to come over? And Nick like goes to like carry me over. And I'm like, no. And I was like, I'm done with this. And to be honest, after that water broke, I don't remember anything hurting. I don't even really remember the contractions being bad or anything. There is such a difference for me. I noticed such a difference in when there was water pushing down my water and the baby's head. And then when there was just the baby's head, like, it was completely different. I found it really, from my water breaking, everything got a lot easier in my experience. So I was like, fine to walk. I just walked over, jumped in the pool, ready to push. And it's so much easier. I found this bit the best part of the whole labor, because it was so easy. When you're contracting, you're just in pain, and you know the pain is doing something. It's bringing baby's head like further down, and your body's like releasing it and stuff. But you can't do anything with the pain. The pain's not telling you to do anything. It's just like you're in pain. Whereas when you're going through the pushing part, when you're contracting, or is it when you're contracting? I don't know. But your body's like, push. You are told to push. So I was like, oh, sweet as. Like, I know what to do. Like, there's something I can do with this feeling of pain and discomfort, which is so much better than for the past 3 hours that I've just been in pain and I've just had to take it. So I actually really enjoyed the pushing bit. I don't know if that's just a me thing. And then, so I think we like pushed like maybe like a couple of minutes. And I'm on all fours pushing, and they were like, yep, baby's head's right there. Do you want to try? They're like, yep, baby's head's right there. Do you want to try get Nick into the pool with you? And you can kind of push against him, because it's quite hard when you're in the pool. It's like a bit slippery, slidey in there. And we had talked about this with my midwife earlier, being like, well, you know, if something like that happens, do you want Nick to jump in with you? And then you can push against him, because he'll hold you. And the pushing might be easier. Some women find it a lot easier if they've got their partner behind them. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I think I pushed like twice without Nick and got him a little bit out. And then Nick jumped in. He was behind me. And then I'm like, lying like this, legs up, and then I think 2 more pushes and he just like slid out. And I know lots of people talk about like the ring of fire, that it hurts heaps as they like come out. For me, the pushing bit honestly was easy. It was so good. He just slipped out. But I had done like lots of the dates and the raspberry leaf tea and like lots of meditation on it. So I looked at my cervix like it was an open door and I was just going to let my baby out. So that's what I believed and that's what happened. Baby comes out. I'm stoked holding him. He's got the cutest little cone head because he had been down in my pelvis since like 37 weeks. So he had like such a cone head. It was so cute. I didn't cry or anything. Not because I was so happy, but I'm not a happy crier. That's just not what I do. Nick cried, obviously. Of course Nick cried. He's so sensitive. I didn't cry. I was just like, yeah, so stoked this is over. So stoked he's here. So stoked he's safe. I remember he came out and he wasn't like, how you prepare yourself and they've all got all that white stuff on them. And that white stuff's really good for them. Anyways, he comes out, no white stuff. He looks so clean. I'm like, is he all good? Like, is he missing his white stuff? But I don't know. He was just like a clean baby. And then we're holding him. And then it was so funny afterwards. They're like, okay, and now you need like birth your placenta. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that? Like, okay, just like, can you push your placenta out? And I'm like, and I tried it. And then I was like, I just weed. Is that bad? She was like, no, that's fine. And then they were like, okay, well, we'll get you out of the bath and we'll take you next door and we'll see if you can get your placenta out. Anyway, so we go next door. I've got Nug on me. It was so cute. They like inject me with something. I get the placenta out. And then I think I didn't tear. I grazed, which is like, okay, so tearing is like when your whole tears. But grazing is when like just part of it stretches and slits a bit. I don't know. But it was on my labia. It was so painful to get stitched up. I was like, it sounds good that you didn't tear, but it's actually, I think, my midwife was like, afterwards, she was like, yeah, it's actually so much harder when it's like your labia. And I'm like, thanks. So then when that's happening, obviously you're meant to have like skin to skin with baby the entire time. But when that was happening, I was like, no, I'm like stressed out right now. And I'm getting fucking angry at because by this point, it's my real midwife that comes and subs in. And so she's stitching me up. And like, I'm like wanting to punch her in the face because it's like hurting. And it probably wasn't even that painful. But at that point, you're just over it. You're over stuff hurting. You're over being poked and prodded. So I was like, oh my God, Mel, I want to punch you in the face. This is so sore. So I didn't want to hold Nug because I was stressed and I'm real conscious about how like they don't have a stress response yet. So he's picking up on mine. So Nick held him and Nick was just cuddling him while I'm getting stitched up. And then they stitch me up. I have a shower, which my midwife helps with and my mother-in-law helps with. Everybody's just seeing me naked, which I'm all for. And then my midwife gets them to agree to let me to go home because we had my mother-in-law who works at like a birthing clinic and stuff. So she was all over it. And so, yeah, we packed up our stuff and then we just went home. And it was so random. But I'm glad that we just went home because I think like that's what I wanted. I just wanted to be home. I like hated the idea of staying the night in the hospital. I just was like, what do you mean I have to go through all of that and then sleep in a hospital? Absolutely not. So we went home that night. Nick had Nug and they slept downstairs together, which I know actually like now looking back on it, lots of people would be like, oh my God, can't believe the baby was not with the mum. But like, he was with his dad, like, and Nick and me, like, Nick was like, I just really want you to sleep well. And then, because we got home really late and everything. And then he slept, we all slept, mean. And then in the morning, I remember waking up and feeling like a bus had hit me. And I was like, okay, this is the most wild feeling I've ever felt. What is going on? And then I had to figure out a way to walk downstairs in so much pain. Because obviously at this point, I don't know where my phone is. We've gotten home. I've gone to sleep. I get downstairs and then I'm like to Nick, hi. And it's so random, like your baby's just there. Like I'm like, hey, so he's there, obviously. And I'm talking to Nick and I'm like, help me. And he was like, oh, okay, honey. So he goes and gets his mum. His mum comes and watches Nug because Nug's just sleeping. And then Nug's sleeping. We go, like Nick showers me. And then we come downstairs and then I just start being a mum. And the whole breastfeeding thing, we went into it very relaxed and very open to bottle feeding because I have inverted nipples. So we're like innie nipples.